the 2011 uprising, the government created the joint working group and signed a defence accord with Bahrain in 2012. Was that intended as a signal of support?
It represents a very supportive relationship between the United Kingdom and Bahrain, which we make no secret of. We see Bahrain as an important partner for the United Kingdom in the region, an important historic partner, a partner that plays a key part in our strategic defence, has given the United Kingdom support with basing rights and helped us in relation to Afghanistan. The joint working group, as we discussed earlier, is one of the evolutions of the Gulf Initiative to look. Bahrain was looking for formalising the bilateral discussions that we have right across the board. We've chosen to do it through the working group and the Defence Accord. I think you may have discussed with Defence Ministers, but that there is a strong relationship, and that you could take both those items as evidence of that strong relationship seems to me perfectly reasonable.
The working group first met 3 months ago. What was achieved?
It's got 5 broad pillars, the working group: bilateral issues, reform and assistance, security and counter-terrorism, trade and investment, regional issues. Under each of those headings, reform and assistance, we continue our efforts to support Bahrain in implementing the Vicky recommendations, of which there were 26. The Crown Prince recently indicated that there were some 17 separate projects which he could count where the United Kingdom was giving technical assistance to Bahrain, some in relation to implementing recommendations, others wider capacity building assistance. So reform and assistance, us encouraging the national dialogue, key part of the working group. Regional issues, as you would imagine, we discussed what was happening in the Gulf and the strategic partnership we have. Trade and investment, we continue to look for opportunities to increase the trade between us. 39% increase in trade between 2009 and 2012. Current total bilateral trade of goods and services of £884 million.
But what was achieved, Minister?
What was achieved by listing all these is to have an opportunity to discuss under each of these headings the current issues where we could do more. In terms of, for instance, reform and technical assistance, I mean, sitting across the table from those responsible for implementing Vicky, I do say, how is this going? Why has some parts of this stalled more than others? What are you going to do about such and such? Why aren't we making progress on that? The working groups gives the opportunity to do that. On the trade and prosperity.
On that very line,
yes,
when you're doing that face to face, if you thought, for example, there was no signs of reform or improvements in Bahrain's protection of human rights, would you then ultimately suspend that group?
No, because I don't think that's the point and the purpose of it. We are committed to assisting Bahrain in delivering on the Vicky recommendations, because we believe that together with the efforts being made at political dialogue, they form the best opportunity of stability for Bahrain in the long term. I don't think a relationship which was based on a sort of or else principle would do the job at the moment. It's quite clear we've made a big commitment to Bahrain. I make no bones about that. You can look at the work we've done, you look at the efforts of our ambassador there. We've taken a view that we believe by engaging with opposition and government, working through these recommendations, the very complex governance issues in Bahrain that spilled over into tragic violence in February 11 has the best chance of being dealt with. I don't think we help that relationship if I was to go into the working group saying, unless you do X, Y and Z, that's it. So I don't think we've reached the stage where it's appropriate for me to talk in those terms. But where we don't think progress has been made, then we are prepared to say so, as we've done through from our various statements.
Okay. Can I just ask you, on progress, and I want you to take you to maybe the need for a united front with the United Kingdom and the United States in relation to Bahrain. And we heard the Crown Prince in December 2012 speak glowingly of United Kingdom, but at the same time totally ignore the United States. And I'm tempted to ask you, do you think the United States has been too critical of Bahrain? But I suspect you probably wouldn't give me an answer.
I would say that it's a matter for them, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. But do you agree that there is potential for a united front if United Kingdom and United States are as one in relation to human rights or anything else with the United Kingdom, Bahrain, or is it just doesn't matter?
I think probably it's more a situation of nuance than anything else. I appreciated what the Crown Prince had to say. I would not have wanted it to be seen in opposition to anyone else, in that others are trying to encourage Bahrain in their own ways, and that the United States will speak with a different voice is because they believe that's an effective way of their communication, and we believe ours is a different way, perhaps because we've got a different type of engagement. So I don't want to see our support for Bahrain counterpointed necessarily with anyone else's. Are our interests the same as those of the United States in wanting to see reform in Bahrain? Absolutely. Absolutely they are. And I've had I've met and discussed with senior US officials the situation in Bahrain and our common aim of seeing recommendations followed through for the stability of Bahrain.
Can I take you to a subject of criticism from opposition, and that's the British advisors in Bahrain, the John Yates and Daniel Bethlehems in this moment. Yeah. Are those advisors help or a hindrance in relation to the opposition's perception that the UK backs or supports the regime?
Well, I don't know. I mean, clearly that's a matter of opinion for them, and they're independent advisors, as you know. They're not UK government advisors, but they were chosen because of their operational experience and the help that they could give, which I certainly support, because as we know throughout the region, one of the difficulties is in controlling large numbers of people, and the incidents that have occurred in the past have often been because there's been a lack of training in security forces who make a misjudgment as to how to handle a crowd.
So you don't think there's any potential reputational damage to the United Kingdom from the perception of these advisors?
No, I don't think so. In that I would urge, and had the opposition at any stage in my conversations with them, which I've held with the major opposition party in London as well as in Manama, had they brought that issue to me, I would hope I could have reassured them. So no, I think those officers there, those are trying to do something which is of benefit to the people of Bahrain and for the political process. I would seek to reassure them. If they take a different view, that's a matter for them, but I would hope to reassure them that that is the purpose of them being engaged there. If people worried about how Bahraini forces reacted in February 11, then they would just have been left alone to their own devices, and we wouldn't have been engaged in trying to improve and make safer their responses. So I would say our involvement is a good thing, and seek to persuade others that that was the case.
Okay.